Hi folks, in this chapter we're going to talk about the life cycle of stars. How are stars born? Are the different stages of their life, and what comes of them when they die? So it's one of the most interesting topics in all of astronomy, and one of those things people seem to really like. I like it. We're going to start with birth. Where do stars come from? Now, remember we talked about this in past chapters, and that's looking at the entire life cycle of something like within one day. Human timescale, we cannot see one star go through its whole life cycle because we're talking about billions of years. So what we look at out in the universe is we look at what's there, and we look at the various stages, and we kind of try and string a story together. The birthplace of stars are nebula. Nebula are these big, beautiful clouds of gas and dust. These are stellar nurseries. This is a detail of the Eagle Nebula, and I am going to show you multiple pictures of some of the most important nebula that are out there. They're very famous. You see them on posters, t-shirts, all over the place. Now, the word nebula is an old Latin word that means fog or mist. And when astronomers first started seeing these in the 1700s, they would see large foggy areas in space, and hence they were called nebula. This is one picture of the Orion Nebula. Nebulas are a mixture of some gases and some interstellar dust. When I say dust, I mean dust, the same sort of dust that you have to dust off of your living room furniture. Everything changed when Hubble telescope in about 1990 actually was launched. Prior to that, the only pictures we had were from ground-based telescopes, and ground-based telescopes gave us images something like this. You could tell there was something foggy and dusty out there, but you could not see any detail. With Hubble, we started to absolutely make some of these nebula superstars. This combination of three large dust clouds have the name the Pillars of Creation, and one of the most beautiful images of nebula that are out there. Here are two other famous ones, the Crab Nebula, mostly because this is in the constellation Cancer, the Crab. The Cat's Eye Nebula, and you can sort of see the outer ring and the inner ring, and it sort of looks like a cat's eye on its side. When you see a picture of a nebula online or etc., often false colors have been added so that we can see the internal structures. We can see the actual areas that are dusty. We can see the heart of the star or the heart of the nebula, and we can see some of the other areas within it. So sometimes you're seeing actual true colors, and sometimes you're seeing something that's been computer enhanced. The most common color that you're going to see in a nebula is going to be pink, and that is because hydrogen gas, when that gas has an emission spectra, and we looked at emission spectra in lab, when you see an emission spectra for hydrogen gas, it has a tendency to be kind of a Pepto-Bismol pink. So astronomers look at a lot of pink stuff. The Carina Nebula, this is not a computer enhanced, that's a true color illustration of that. The Horsehead Nebula, you can sort of see this looks like a horse head or almost like a chess piece for a, what's the one that looks like a horse? A knight, I think. The Butterfly Nebula, also something very, very famous. And the Butterfly Nebula is wonderful because you can see that everything was thrown outward from some sort of explosion. So this was something, probably a star perhaps going supernova, creating massive shock waves and dust strewn back out into the universe. My favorite nebula is the Orion Nebula, and one of the reasons it's my favorite is you can find it, and you can find it with your naked eye. You don't necessarily need a telescope to see it. On the constellation Orion, we have the 1, 2, 3, 4 basic stars of Orion. We have his sword belt, and then down on his sword there is this fuzzy pink thing right there, and that fuzzy pink thing is the Orion Nebula. So when we look at these nebula, as I mentioned before, often they're computer enhanced, but we also love to look at them in different wavelengths of light because they tell us different things. This happens to be the Crab Nebula as seen in the radio wavelengths, the infrared, so we can see the hot sections. The visible light, visible Crab Nebula is quite beautiful. The ultraviolet, more high energy radiations given off, X-ray radiation, and gamma rays. And it is this high end, the X-ray and gamma rays, that allows us to see things like black holes and very violent parts of this. We're going to ignore that. So that is going to finish our little discussion of nebula. And we'll come back and we're going to start talking about stellar nurseries and how stars are born. See you then.